I know where there's some, right here in the hall, clerk.
No, Molly, not in there. I have
Hi, and welcome back to the final part on the Cobramatic, the 1951 Zenith Cobramatic turntable. When I left you last, I was checking where the landing zone was for the turntable when it goes through a cycle. And according to the instructions, it's interesting. I did this process already. By the way, I have this plate just sitting in here so I can see the numbers for the record size. But I did this process already, and my tone arm landed, for a 7-inch record, landed like out here somewhere. And of course a 7-inch record. And this is the classic Ooga by the Mark IV. I don't remember them. Oh, the other flip side is I Got a Wife. Well, good. Anyway, there's a 7-inch platter. It was landing out here for a 7-inch platter, so it was way off. Normally, when nobody like me has been messing with it, it just is a bit off one way or the other, and you adjust that with a screw right under here. But since it's way off, I had to make a different kind of adjustment, and I'll show you what that was. But the process is to set this to 7-inch, like that, and then reach under here, activate the trip lever, and start turning this by hand in the direction it goes when it's running. Oh, I probably didn't get that right yet. Now, the tone arm comes up, gets out of the way of the next falling record, then swings in, and in this case to what should be 7 inches, and lowers itself gently onto the record. Now that's just about on the money, as I don't have the cartridge or the needle in here, but that's really close. And when I do put it all together and try to play a record, I can do fine tuning with the screw that's just under this pivot. But let me show you what happens if, in your case, it lands. Whoops! Turn that once more to release the clutch. There. If it lands out here somewhere, and the deal is, you want to get it back to where it was. When it lifts up, let's change this to 12. When it lifts up, and I'll change that to 12 for demonstration purposes. And it's about 12 inches. So it lifts up and it starts to set down. You know where it is. The brake is engaged, so this is pretty stable. It won't flop around too much. And keep in mind that you're doing this 12. Well, this is on 7. That didn't happen this time, but we'll try it again. So we'll just talk through it. If it lands out here, where it shouldn't, like that, the adjustment is, let's see if I can, this piece of winged metal right here. Yeah, it's this guy right here, and it's like it has two horns on it, and it has 2 set screws, Allen screws this size. So you loosen those and rotate, since this is all still clutched, you rotate this to where it will just be right at the right spot. In my case, right here. That's for 7 inches. And then you tighten those back up, and then the next time you work the cycle, the tone arm should come down where it needs to be at 7 inches. Once you've done 7, you don't have to do 10 and 12. It'll just do them automatically. I think that's about all there is to say about that. A viewer wrote in, and I was talking, recall I was wondering about the rumble, the amount of rumble that this has, and a viewer wrote in with a distinct possibility, and that is that I had left these bearing assemblies, both the one down in here for the platter and the bearing assembly that goes in here, is a sandwich. It's a flat washer, the roller bearing, and another flat washer. The flat washer are taking the place of races, in this case, bearing races. And he suggested that maybe I had left one of the washers out by accident here. And it turns out I had not. I think that the simple fact is, in 1951, this was not the top of the line. Well, let me rephrase that. In 1951, they only got better after this. So they got quieter. The more sensitive the pickups were, the less rumble the turntable could produce, because it just got picked up and transmitted back to the amplifier. So they just got quieter and quieter and quieter. This motor, I know, is a holdover from the 30s. The mechanism is not designed to be ultra quiet. It's just that rumble I complained about is just how much rumble it makes. Probably made that same noise when it came out of the factory. So I'm not concerned about that. Again, thanks for suggesting that that might be the problem, but in this case it is not the problem. It's just a noisy, inherently noisy turntable. Oh, the one thing you do have to pay attention to if you work on these a lot is if you've got a lot of grease down in that bearing and on the washers, sometimes when you pick this up, a washer will stick to this surface right here. And, oops, sorry. When you pick this up, a washer will stick to this surface right here. So every time you pick this up, cast a jaundiced eye right there and make sure you haven't carried a washer up with you in the course of picking up. What's next? The next thing I think I want to talk about is this guy. This is not the original cartridge, but it is a replacement cartridge with, under magnification, looks like a pretty new needle. But this is an interesting, this thing works in a really interesting way. Let me get some drawings up on the computer and I will show you what's kind of odd about that. Alright, I probably shouldn't have used the word odd. It's unique, innovative, and I've not run across it before other than with Zenith turntables. So here's a close-up, and I apologize for the quality. This is the best I could do given what I have, but this is a close-up of the cartridge right here. And you'll notice a couple of things. One is a coil. That's just a coil of wire right there. And then there's the ruby or sapphire, whatever, out of focus, but the ruby or sapphire mounted on this piece of metal, flat. The point of this is going up in this direction. So in play mode, this would be shifted, I don't know, to the left and down. Anyway, so that the tip of this was touching the record. So the needle, the stylus, is a piece of flat metal connected to another piece of metal, which you can barely see, but it's right there. And that is on something of a hinge. And what happens with this thing is, as the stylus goes through the record grooves and shakes back and forth and up and down a bit, it shakes the plate, this plate that's right here, and brings it closer or farther away from this coil. And it changes the inductance, or the Q, in this coil. And that's what the pickup is. It's not magnetic, it's not ceramic, it's a changing inductor value that's fed back to the amplifier via those tiny wires. So, very curious, very interesting, very innovative. I don't know how long they used this, but as I said, you can still buy this particular, you can't buy one from Zenith, of course, but you can buy one from, Aesthetic. So let's see what the radio does with this signal once it arrives. That modulated coil, or that variable Q coil that's in the cartridge, and we plunk it down in this schematic right here where it says phono socket. So mentally replace that socket symbol with a coil like this one, with one of those arrows through it to show it's a variable. So we've got a coil, we have a capacitor, we have another coil. What do we have? We have a tank circuit. And what does it do? Well, it oscillates. This tank circuit happens to oscillate at 2.5 megahertz. And when a record is playing, that 2.5 megahertz signal is amplitude modulated because of the variability of this cartridge that's in right here, we're imagining. So where does that go? Well, one end goes up here, and we'll have to see if we can follow this up. Yes. Up here, through this switch, around this way, and up to our friend the converter plate at pin 1 of the converter. So that's one side of the oscillated signal. The other side goes through this 0.05 cap, up through this resistor, through this switch. The switches are, by the way, at phono settings. And up through a 1 picofarad cap and to the other plate of our converter. In other words, what we have here is RF oscillation being fed with a modulated oscillator being fed into the converter, where it gets converted to 455 modulated and passed on through the IF transformers and IF amplifiers. So what this is down here is just a little tiny radio station, fixed frequency, modulated by the phono socket itself. Pretty cool trick, in my opinion. It's not, what are the pros and cons? The pros and cons are, it'd be a lot easier if it just had an amplifiable direct audio signal coming out of the cartridge, but it don't. So this is what Zenith came up with during the time. you want to change out this moving vane, whatever they call it, this variable inductor in the cartridge, and put in a ceramic or a magnetic. If you do, you have to change some stuff. You have to change the design. If you're a audio fiend, you're aware that linearity is one of the important things that needs to happen with record reproduction. And the other thing that needs to happen is you need to have enough signal to feed the output stage of the radio. And so ceramic is probably the best bet. A ceramic cartridge would give you, half a volt to a volt output, depending. It's a big depending. And a moving coil is smaller than a millivolt. I mean, it's just a tiny little signal. You'd have to amplify the heck out of it. But what do you do with it when you have it? So you're kind of Xing out this stuff here. This side of this circuit is power to energize the oscillator. So you don't need that side either. What you need to do, and I haven't tried this. I'm not guaranteeing that it will work at all. But a lot of people I know will take the output of the cartridge for ceramic and tie it directly to the volume pot right here, to one side or the other of the volume pot. And I haven't studied it to see which side it would be. Through a capacitor, of course, just so you're passing audio, no DC. I don't know that that'll work. I don't know that it won't work. I might try it. If this cartridge that came with the record player doesn't test out, and we'll test it here in a minute. But if the cartridge doesn't test out, I'm faced with the decision: do I try to get another of those coil flapper coil cartridges, or do I try to replace it with a ceramic? I think it's kind of a waste of time to replace in this radio in particular. This is not a high-end audio output device. It was high-end for 1951. It's not even close to high-end for what today's audio systems can do. So it's not worth putting a moving magnet or a moving coil cartridge in. It might be worth doing a ceramic because they're common and fairly easy, I think, to tie into the output stage of the record player. So it's up to you. I am. If this cartridge works, that's the one that's going to stay with it. So let's test the cartridge and see what's happening. Okay, since the cartridge contains a coil, and we test coils every day in this business, we can just check its DC impedance. That will tell us whether the coil is functioning or not. I think you can probably see that. The cartridge has only, modern stereo cartridges have 4 connectors. This one has 2 because it's mono. So we'll just see what the DC resistance is across these 2. Should be about 2.5 ohms, I think, according to the documentation. 3.3 ohms. So the cartridge is good. Let's take a look just for giggles at the inductance of that using my El Cheapo meter here that does a little bit of everything. And probably none of it well. But it does measure coils. And it says it is an inductor, 3.4 ohms, 0.01 millihenries. And should be fine. Should be fine. It'd be interesting to... this just takes a snapshot, so I can't get a real time. Or what I was thinking was I could rub my finger across the stylus and get it to change, but not really. This just reports. Samples and reports. Alright, so we apparently have a good cartridge. As near as I can tell, the stylus, the needle itself is in good shape. Should work. So the next thing for me to do to finish this up is, you'll recall that I have the cartridge wires leads are disconnected, so I need to resolder those and get the original shielded cable that connects the cartridge over to the amplifier portion of the radio. So I'll get that together, and the next thing we'll do is hook this up, go up to the cold bench, hook this up along with all the radio parts, and see if this actually plays records.